Harry Potter and the Debaucherous Threesome. An erotic fan fiction. Harry awoke slowly from his slumber. The morning light poured into the room and onto his glistening naked body. He yawned and stretched, trying to remember the evening before. What happened last night, he wondered. Was it all just a dream? Suddenly he felt a movement coming from under the covers. "Bloody hell," he exclaimed. "What cheeky bastard is bunking in me flat?" A head popped out on his left. It was Professor Tits McGee, the sexual lotions instructor. She was completely disrobed, wearing only a smirk on her face. "That was no dream," she said. "Yes," said another head that popped out on his right. It was Hermione Granger, the randy bimbo herself. "I can assure you it was quite real." Harry stared at them in disbelief. His trouser snake was beginning to rise. He felt it fattening up right then and there. "Blimey, am I ever horny?" he panted. The girls looked at each other and winked. "All right," said McGee. Hermione leaned in. "But this time we discharge first." Harry beamed. "I suppose it's only fair," he muttered. "All right then, whose muff am I gonna slosh first?" Right then there was a banging at the door. "Oi, Harry," someone shouted. "Get up, mate. We're gonna be late for the footy game." Harry froze. He knew that it was Ron Weasley on the other side. "Bloody hell, Ron, I'll be out in a minute." Ron started banging on the door again. "Oi," he shouted. "It's not fair to keep me and the mates waiting for your lazy ass, innit?" Harry felt his bonnocks swell in impatient anticipation. "I'm stark raving naked man. Bugger off." Without warning, Hermione threw her mouth onto Harry's knob. He gasped silently. "Not now," he whispered. Hermione ignored his pleas and continued sucking on. Harry bit his lip and clenched the headboard. Ron rattled the door latch. "Open up already, mate. I got to take a wicked shite right out me asshole, and I got to use your loo." Just then, Professor McGee joined in with Hermione, sucking Harry off as best they could. Harry could barely take the massive amounts of pleasure he was receiving. "Bloody hell," he shouted, "would you just sod off, Ron? Can't you see I'm busy?" "Blimey, what crawled up your asshole?" said Ron. Harry then heard him walking down the corridor. He breathed a sigh of relief, and looked down at the girls. "You cheeky monkeys," he yelled. "I almost had a heart attack, I did." They all laughed a good laugh. "Now then," said McGee, "where were we?" Harry threw the sheets off the bed and began strumming their muffs in unison. They groaned and moaned, and began kissing each other on the mouth. Harry strummed harder and harder, his digits aching more and more. "Crikey, me hands are starting to hurt," he groaned. Hermione scoffed. "Haven't you learned anything from sexual lotions class?" she asked. Harry thought for a moment, then gasped. "Of course. My bludger bat." He ran to the cupboard and pulled out the massive club. It immediately began throbbing in his hand, as if sensing how randy he was. "This ought to do the trick," he said. "Oi, Miss McGee, you got any lotions I can use to grease up this here schlong? There should be some elven lubricant in the left pocket." Harry dashed over and fished around hurriedly. He felt a bottle and pulled it out, rubbing it all over the makeshift dildo. "Might as well rub it over me own pecker," he thought, and poured the rest all over his crotch. Suddenly there was another banging at the door. "Harry," Ron shouted. "What's taking so long, mate?" Harry was furious. "F*** off you," he shouted. Right then, Harry felt a strange tingling coming from his knob. He looked down and realized it was shrinking and shrinking, and soon turned into a snatch. He gasped. "What's happening to me?" "Harry, that's not lube you used," said Professor McGee. "That's polyjuice potion." Harry looked in the mirror and saw himself transform into the voluptuous teacher. He began feeling up his own bits, and couldn't believe how good it felt. "Blimey, I'm even more randy than before," he exclaimed. "What's going on in there?" Ron shouted. The door suddenly flung open, and he fell into the room. He got up with a groan, and then gasped. There were 3 naked women standing all around him. "Crikey," he muttered. "What have I gotten myself into this time?" To be continued.